There are 3 huge faceless history channels on screen right now that all run the exact same format and pull millions of views between them, which means there's a system behind these. So the question we're testing today is whether one single conversation with Claude can run that entire system. I should point out that this channel itself is a faceless channel, so I'm very much the target audience here rather than some guru. Also, Higgsfield sponsored this video, but the experiment and the verdict are entirely mine. I'm going to show you everything I typed, which was exactly 5 things. And then I'll play the full untouched result at the very end. Before we run anything though, I want to be fair to the website, because honestly, this interface is where Higgsfield shines. Everything's a visual preset, you see the cost before you commit. For me, it's genuinely the best interface in this space right now. But for one-shotting a whole faceless explainer from one text box, even something this good is more of a shop window than the studio. So here's the test. 1 vague prompt, a watercolor preset, 296 credits, and about 10 minutes of waiting. Here's what came back.
Database query, a code runner, and the model itself decides when to reach for it. Then it runs a simple loop where the agent thinks about the goal, picks one.
And look, that's genuinely pretty, but it's a mood board, not an episode, and that is not the tool's fault. A one-line prompt doesn't carry enough information for a story. So I had Claude write a properly detailed prompt and pasted that straight into the same box. And it is better, but it still kept drifting away from what the prompt asked for, which is when it clicked. If Claude's writing the prompts anyway, stop copy-pasting, plug Claude in directly and let it drive the tool itself. And honestly, it took over and handled it incredibly well. So let me actually show you how this thing's set up, because Higgsfield ships an MCP server, which is basically a standard way to let an AI operate another product's tools directly. And I plugged that into Claude Code running Fable 5. For a job like this, that comfortably beats typing one prompt into a website box, because a conversation lets the AI clarify and inspect and fix things as it goes instead of just getting one shot. Getting into the first step, we needed a niche. You can see my first prompt here, where I asked Claude to research what's working in history content and make one concrete recommendation. And it came back suggesting first-person day-in-the-life episodes about medieval daily life, because it found a genuine gap in the market. Then for my second prompt, I told it to research a specific story and produce a full brief for a 4.5-minute video using retention best practices. It came back with a gravedigger in London in the winter of 1349, right in the middle of the Black Death. And honestly, that's a genuinely good pick, and it wasn't mine. This next part's where the process really turned. When I told it to build the video, I actually asked whether we could just leave the script up to the brief. And Claude said no, the script gets locked now, nothing left to chance. And it was right. After that, it asked exactly 2 preference questions through the MCP, which were the visual style, where I picked a stickman cartoon, and a narrator voice called Soraya. Then, completely unprompted, it generated individual image assets for every scene first, like character sheets and props and buildings on whiteboards, checked them against each other, and only then touched the video. Nobody told it to do any of that, which is the moment you realize it genuinely knows this tool. Moving on to the actual build phase, the whole thing took 2 hours, which we're compressing down for you here. It generated the video segment by segment, inspecting the pieces as they came back and redoing only the ones that failed, before assembling everything, adding captions, and upscaling it at the end. And looking at the numbers, that was 2 hours of Claude running mostly in the background, but only about 10 to 15 minutes of actual involvement from me. So what did all of that actually cost in the end? It consumed just over 1,000 Higgsfield credits to make one 4.5-minute clip in 1080p, with its own narration and burned captions. And I'm going to pause right here and show you a quick 15 seconds of what came back.
London is burying 200 people a day. It is the winter of 1349, the Great Pestilence, and you are the man who digs the graves. Every churchyard inside the city walls is already full, so London has bought.
Honestly, that looks better than I expected, because it's one consistent, hand-drawn world with a persistent character, and the history mostly holds up too. It even debunks the beaked plague mask myth, since those masks belong to a different plague 3 centuries later. Right, now we need to look at the problems, because there are a few. Watch the straw bed here as he lies down on it. It just grows, and then a couple of seconds later, his shovel quietly picks up a second head, which is the kind of small glitch you'd fix by re-rendering those specific moments. You'll also notice the narrator keeps flipping between an American and an English accent the whole way through, and you'll hear that for yourself at the end. But the real fault is the story structure, which sounds like an AI wrote it, because one did, so it wanders instead of building. And that one isn't a glitch, that's the limit of hands-off automation. The fix comes down to a few plain rules. If you want something publishable, you have to bring your own structure and your own script, because that's, the 50% the machine can't do for you yet. You should also plug in a proper voice, and Higgsfield supports importing a custom 11 Labs voice, so you can even clone your own. At the end of the day, the input decides the output. Getting to the final verdict, the research, the assets, the generation, the assembly, and the captions pretty much ran themselves, while the taste, the story, and the voice still needed a human. The MCP really is the whole difference here, because it's exactly the same tool held a completely different way, and this test barely scratches what you could automate with it. There's a link in the description and the pinned comment if you want to try it yourself. I'm going to hand over now to the full 4.5 minutes, exactly as Claude delivered it.
London is burying 200 people a day. It is the winter of 1349, the Great Pestilence, and you are the man who digs the graves. Every churchyard inside the city walls is already full, so London has bought open fields beyond them and hired men like you to fill those fields instead. This is one day of that work, from the first bell to curfew, and the strangest thing about this day will not be the dead you bury. You wake in the dark on the floor of a rented room, and only 3 months ago you carried fish at the river wharves for a living. Then the pestilence reached London in autumn, and by Christmas the parish grounds were shut for want of room. The church bought new ground east of the tower. Grave work pays better than fish ever did. You take your spade while the streets are empty, because the carts begin moving before the winter sun does. The city is not what it was. England's largest town held perhaps 70,000 people before the sickness, and now half the shops on Cheapside stand shuttered. Bells ring for the dead in one parish, then another, and soon 3 together. A cart rolls ahead, collecting what the night has left at the doorways. Above it all stands the spire of St. Paul's, the tallest thing you have ever seen. The sickness came in autumn and has never stopped for winter. That ground east of the tower is a field of long open trenches. People will imagine chaos, bodies tipped in without care, tangled and forgotten by all. That is not what happens, and not what archaeologists would find 6 centuries on. They would uncover rows laid west to east, children set carefully between the adults. Many go down in coffins, 5 deep, where the ground ran out of room. Even now, at the very worst, London still buries its dead in order. By midday, you have stopped asking names, because the sickness takes anyone it touches, and the king's own daughter died of it on the road to her wedding. In one summer, it will kill 2 archbishops of Canterbury, and one of them dies before he can even be consecrated. Rank is no wall against it. Parish priests go faster than almost anyone because they sit with the dying last of all. You blame the foul air, like every physician in all England. Here is the strange part. You have never once earned more in your life. Half the city's labor is dead or fled, so the living name their price. No doctor visits these pits, and none wear beaked masks anyway, because that costume belongs to a different plague nearly 3 centuries away from where you stand. Medicine here is vinegar, dried herbs, and prayer, and none of it works like your spade. The king has noticed what common workmen now charge for a day. By the time the light goes, you have lost count of the burials. But a clerk who lives near St. Paul's has kept count for the whole city. He records more than 200 burials a day in just one of the new cemeteries, from Candlemas through Easter, and the other grounds keep their own tallies. Before this pestilence burns out, something like half of London will be gone. The curfew bell rings, and like everyone, you sleep in the clothes you dug in. Spring comes, and at last the deaths thin out. What is left behind is a different country, where survivors suddenly inherit land, tools, and whole workshops standing empty. Wages climb so fast that in June the king freezes them by law and orders everyone under 60 to work as if the dead were still alive. It does not hold. Within a generation, the men who plow the fields charge what the work is worth, and lords lease land to families once bound to it. The pits are still there, and in 1986, excavators beside the Royal Mint uncovered the East Smithfield trenches, the rows still exactly as they were left. In 2011, scientists drew the killer's own code from the teeth of the dead, the first full genome of the Black Death, mapped from this single field. We know that plague down to its code, but the men who dug its graves were never written down, and this was one day of their work.